What is up, you guys? It's me, Reese, and in today's video, we're going to be doing something a little different. Today, I'm going to be giving my thoughts on Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom before I beat it. So, I just kind of want to talk about a little bit of what I've thought of the game thus far. So, for a bit of background, I initially started the game the day after release when I did a Riis tries episode, going through the beginning of the story and generally sharing my first impressions of the game. Honestly, I didn't have super high expectations going into it, but I did find the idea of a Zelda-centered Zelda game really compelling because, yes, when people ask, is that Zelda? I can just say, yes, that is, without having to explain the fact I'm actually a guy named Link, that I've named something else, and that Zelda is barely in the actual game other than the title of it. I really enjoyed the bit of gameplay that I got during that Riis Tries episode of my first impression. I felt like the echoes were a great way of utilizing Zelda's wisdom, her part of the Triforce. The puzzles weren't overwhelmingly difficult, but were just enough of a challenge where I felt like really smart whenever I solved them, which is really all I need because don't get me wrong, I love a confusing puzzle, but I love a confusing puzzle way more when I can actually solve it. What I really enjoyed the most about this game's puzzles is that there are just so many ways to go about solving them. There's no right way to do most of them. You get to be as creative as you want to be, and if it works, then it works. I can't stress enough how much I love that about this game, and the fact that some really weird ideas actually work makes me feel even smarter. And I'm just like, man, how did I come up with that? I'm a genius. And of course, also, I would record clips of me actually solving the puzzles. Not really in time for you to see the whole process of me failing and then solving it, but enough to where you see the fact that I got past that somehow. And I'm just like, I really wonder what other people did to get past certain parts of the game. As for the story, so far, I can't say I have any strong opinions about it, but for what it is, I like it. It's simple, it's kind of, you understand your objective, and there's not too much more that needs explaining beyond the beginning of the game as far as, the story goes and what's going on. There's nothing confusing about it, just plain and simple, easy to understand and to comprehend. But I will say, it is not the easiest when you're trying to explain to someone else what happens to get the events of the game in motion. So I'm going to try my best to kind of sum up the premise and the beginning, and that way you're able to understand the other things that I say should it apply. So, the world is being swallowed up bit by these dark void things, right? The shadow world, and unfortunately for Hyrule, Link has fallen victim to this happening. Things take a turn for the worse when the king and his underlings are replaced by evil versions of themselves, and Zelda is taken in as a prisoner under false pretenses. It's here where you meet your cute little partner Tri, who acts as your companion and gives you the ability to fix the rifts that are plaguing Hyrule, because the dark shadow spots are called rifts. After escaping the castle dungeon, the goal we basically have is to go around and fix the rifts in hope of not only finding the missing hero, but also clearing Zelda's name and restoring Hyrule to how it was before. Now, another thing to mention is that this takes place after Link has become a hero to Hyrule. So he's pretty much just known as, a great swordsman and everything, and he did beat Ganon. And that happens at the beginning of the game. Anyways, this whole, restoring Hyrule doesn't come without its challenges. However, I'm not sure how it ends. So take my opinions with a grain of salt, because good or bad, the opinions could change once I actually do finish the game. So yeah, I started the game out doing as little story as possible, beyond what you guys got to see in my stream. I wanted to see just how much I could do and where all I could go before progressing further into the game after I was able to freely go places. That's something that I typically tend to do with any game that I play, but I was pleasantly surprised by just how much I was able to do here. This took up a pretty sizable chunk of my time with the game because there weren't many limits, and I was able to get pretty much anywhere with the help of my echoes. And exploring early on worked in my favor because I had access to more echoes to help me out once I did eventually progress the story. And honestly, with some of the like puzzles and stuff that I ended up getting, or like enemies I had to fight, I'm really not sure how I would have gotten past certain parts without certain echoes that I received while exploring being there to help me. So seeing as the story is kind of paced based on how you're playing the game, I had a few large gaps between story event to story event, and so while some details are a bit fuzzy on certain portions, there's one part that I really enjoyed that really, you know, sticks with me as part of why I have such a good impression of this game and its events, basically. The Zoras. So there's this portion of the game where there's the two different kinds of Zoras, you know, the green ones from like some of the older Zelda games, and then the ones that everybody kind of knows. They're like fish people and stuff. And there's this part where, you know, you kind of see them having their own like lore, the Zoras, you know, being two different kinds and like having their own territories and stuff, and kind of get into that, which I thought was really cool just because I don't see the green ones used that much, and it was nice seeing them come together. And so it kind of made me wonder, like, are they going to include that species of Zora in future Zelda games? Like, you know, that's just the thing. But I thought it was really cool, that whole like storyline. I really loved it. I ended up shipping the two chieftains and everything, and the music that they did was really nice as well, and that was just my ultimate favorite part. It was after that part of the game where I was like, yeah, I definitely love this game. I'm sold on this game. I know I'm jumping all over the place, but I'm trying my best not to spoil too much of the game for those who haven't played, so I don't really want to go chunk by chunk. We'd be here all day because, like I said, some of it's lazy, so I'd be sitting here thinking what happened after that. Because how I went about things, I didn't go about my gameplay in a linear way, so it's a bit harder to put everything into a cohesive order. So I think this will do for anyone who wants to play the game for themselves and experience it for themselves, who just wants a taste of somebody's thoughts without giving away the entirety of the game, which I can't do anyway, since I haven't beat it yet. Anyways, personally, I think having Zelda be a silent protagonist in this game serves the game very well. As someone who personally hasn't been a fan of Breath of the Wild / Tears of the Kingdom Zelda, it was nice being able to project my own personality onto the character in my head, just like I do when I play a Silent Link. Though some character development is supplied by Tri's dialogue, my thing is just, I prefer silent protagonist characters to characters who have their own thoughts and feelings, because I hate to disagree with the character that I'm playing as and follow what they're doing when it's not what I personally feel should be done. And while obviously these games don't give you much choice in that, you can at least think to yourself and put yourself in the situation a bit, because there's nothing there. For me, that's like just a natural thing and something that I prefer and enjoy, but I just truly was not a fan of the current Zelda's personality. Mind you, I haven't finished Tears of the Kingdom either, so that could change, but I just liked better that she wasn't already voiced and she was a silent protagonist, because that really made it like we're actually playing Zelda as if she were in Link's position in a way. Also, did I mention that Zelda is a wanted criminal in this game? Yeah, so she wears a hood to disguise her true identity because there are wanted posters for her all over Hyrule. Totally forgot to add that part. But a couple of characters that are honorable mentions that I really enjoyed were Right and Left. Right more than Left, but I enjoyed them as additions. But those names, they could have been a little more creative, but they did give me a chuckle. Anyways, all in all, I enjoyed this game less so for the story and more so for the gameplay, which I think was intentional. They didn't want to overcomplicate things with the story because this is just dipping their toe into what it would be like having Zelda actually be playable in a Zelda game. And so I understand why they went the route that they went with a more simple, straightforward story as a start to maybe what could end up being more in the future titles with Zelda actually being the main character. I think it's really cool that they really incorporated the concept of wisdom more so in the idea that you have to think a little bit more with this game. You can't just charge in, fight, and be good at fighting and expect to get through the game. You have to put that wisdom in the tank and use that to solve the puzzles and to figure out how to progress. And I like that they did that. It kind of makes me wonder what would they do with Ganondorf as a main character because he's power. So just an interesting idea that paves the way for a lot more future Zelda games that don't necessarily center Link as being a main character. And while he is still a main character in this game, he does have some appearances and cameos. You get his sword, you get his bow and arrow, but I can't say more than that. He's not like, you're not playing as him, and so he's a focal point, but in a different way, almost in the same way that Zelda is a focal point when Link is the main character. Link is a focal point here where Zelda's the main character. And I like that they switched it in a way that doesn't feel too like on the nose for what you might think it would be. She's not just being a female Link, if you will, basically. And I really like the route that they went with this game. So I'm super excited to cross the threshold into beating the game and be able to share even more of my thoughts once the story does reach its conclusion. I wonder if anything will happen that will make it like, not only is the gameplay super innovative and interesting, but the story is interesting as well. Not to say that it's entirely not interesting, but the concept itself isn't enough to where it would truly grab me the way that the gameplay grabs me. I would say other Zelda games like Skyward Sword or even Wind Waker, Skyward Sword is more complex, but Wind Waker is a very more simple story, but you really fall in love with the characters and gameplay of the game. I feel like this is just like, it's like they wanted you to fall more in love with the gameplay that they came up with, more so than the story. And I almost feel a bit like the story is like there so that the gameplay can exist, rather than them both fully working together. I don't know if that's making sense. I just feel like the whole concept of the echoes was more important to them and how it all works, as opposed to the story and there being anything really that impactful about the story. Which, don't take this as me saying that that's a bad thing. I actually think that that's a good thing, because this game serves as far as I know, the first of its kind, at least in the 3D world of Zelda. So, very good game. I found myself often being able to play it if I just want something to play casually, or if I want something to really focus in on. It serves both purposes, and that's kind of all you can ask for a game. It's definitely one of the more memorable Switch titles, to be honest with you, and it's just all around enjoyable. I will say one thing, and this could change based upon where I'm at in the game, I don't know, but I went to the horses at a time where I don't know if I was supposed to. I told you guys I explored everywhere, right? I was just exploring as much as I can and going to as much stuff as I could. Well, the horses, they're cute. I liked them when I first discovered them, but with the way the map works and how much stuff you have to use an echo to get up certain spots and stuff like that, it's like somewhat annoying the fact that there's no easy way for the horse to go with you half the time. But I found myself just being like, I just don't need the horse then. You know what I mean? And I feel like it could be because that was maybe one of the last areas I was really filling out on my map. Maybe I would have felt differently if I discovered the horses earlier and they were with me more as I was filling out my map and everything. That is not the way it shook out. And the horses just aren't good to go with you while you're truly exploring. You know what I mean? So there's room for improvement there. But other than that, I don't have many notes. I know I said a lot about the story being simple, but that isn't necessarily to say that I would like it to be more complicated. I'm just saying what it is. It is more simple, the story. And I hope that they do more titles like this where you are playing at Zelda, and when you play at Zelda, wisdom and using your mental abilities is more in the front seat. So, and it just leaves a lot of room to make you think, what else could they do with this? What could they do with this in the main line? This is a main line, but this is chibi Zelda. What could they do with like full-on Zelda game with Zelda being the protagonist that you're playing as? It just leaves the door open for a lot of conversations surrounding that. And if you think about it more, with the fact that they went by the fact that her part of the Triforce is wisdom as basically inspiration for how the game itself works, what would they do with power? It really makes you think. And so I'm excited to see what more they do with that. But of course, if any of my thoughts change about the game when I finish it, I'll be back to give you guys an update. But I did feel obligated to say something because you guys did see me start the game and I haven't fully dropped it, although I've picked it up and put it down over time. So that being said, if you've played Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, what do you feel about it? Did you enjoy it? What did you enjoy about it? And if you haven't played it, would you play it after hearing my thoughts about it? Not that they were that profound, but I would like to hear what you guys think of this game down in the comments. And with that, that's it for me. Peace out, you guys.